The UAE's Hope probe, known as Al-Amal in Arabic, reached Mars on February 9th after a 7-month journey. That was just the other day. I watched it when it happened. It was a really, you saw the people around the world looking at it. It was an amazingly, almost magical moment because, when you kind of look at the legacy of what it took to put this up into space, is remarkable. The UAE is the first Arab country to reach Mars and only the 5th country in the world to do so. Our next guest, Sarah Al-Amiri, is the UAE Minister of State for Advanced Technology, the chairwoman of the UAE Space Agency, and played a key role in this historic accomplishment. Your Excellency, it's great to see you, and thank you so much for joining us today. I should admit, I've been, when that Mars probe, Hope, was launched, I had the privilege of interviewing Ambassador Yusuf Al-Otaiba and our former chief scientist at NASA, Ellen Stofan. And I had kind of goosebumps, sort of thinking about what this may mean to a country that's just 50 years old, and you're out there competing. So tell us how you feel about the UAE and its probe right now that's circling Mars.
Good day, and thank you for having me at the show today. It's been such a remarkable journey getting to the point where the Emirates today has a spacecraft around Mars. The most exciting part for the team has been seeing the first image coming out of one of our instruments and realizing the state of what's to come when it comes to the science of this mission. It's been quite a change overall within the Emirates over the course of the last few years, but more importantly, during the time of arrival to Mars, after taking such a large challenge to get there, and with the understanding of what the outcomes could possibly be, with the knowledge that only 50% of the missions make it there successfully. We've seen such a large change in perspectives on what aspirations could be, but more importantly, a large interest in STEM, which is one of the drivers for our diversification of the economy, where science and technology is sought out to be the foundations of that diversification.
Mr. Amiri, I'm going to ask you a personal question. When you were younger, and I have to, say that you're one of the youngest ministers in a science field in the cabinet in the UAE, in the government of the UAE. But when you were younger and wanted to be in space programs and aerospace programs, they didn't exist. You I think, went into computer engineering, et cetera, et cetera. But I guess the question we're trying to get at, as many youth in the region are beginning to look at their futures, is how did that come about? I guess, where did you get that deep desire, and how did the government eventually provide the rail track, if you will, for you to kind of get on the track for your aspiration? So it's more of a personal question than a professional one, because a lot of people look at UAE and say, wow, it hits above its weight. Wow, it's got a lot of women in government. Wow, it's got a lot of folks in science. The question is, where did this come from?
So aspiration and fascination with space happens with children of all ages. It is the great unknown, and it's the great vastness of space that usually intrigues people. And just living with young people today around me from various ages, you see a spark in their eyes whenever they think of space, whenever you look up at the sky. And for me, growing up, that was an area that I thought that I could never work in, considering that we didn't have a space program. Space programs for me growing up was seeing NASA missions and seeing what those missions can do. I've never seen something from this region on space exploration, or seen a scientist also from this region who was working within the field. So with the lack of having perhaps a sliver of hope to peg my dreams on, I did divert away from it. In 2006, that's prior to me graduating, the Emirates started what is now known as the Mohammed Rashid Space Center, and I personally fell on it completely by accident. But the way that it was developed was to develop a space program through know-how transfer and focus on hiring fresh graduates and training them up and providing with the necessary experience to start working on design and development of Earth observation satellites. And then we transferred on to Mars. That is an opportunity that I never thought would have existed for myself. I'm glad that I've been part of it. And I have a deep understanding and appreciation with what the UAE has done in starting such a program, especially now within my current role. This program overall was an experiment in transferring know-how, building experience in a sector that never existed. And inevitably, this is what you need when you're diversifying your economy. And it's a means towards which you establish a sector, build experience, attract the right talent, and create the right environment for that industrial sector to flourish in. It's been quite an interesting journey for all of us who have been part of this. But today, children who are at my age, when I was fascinated with space, do think of working in the space sector. They do think that this is a possibility for them, and they can actually not divert away from their dreams and aspirations.
I know that you work in advanced technology and you head the UAE space mission, which is defining, and it's getting a lot of headlines, right now. So, maybe budgets are easy, but, I always sort of look at it when you measure the priorities of a place. Do you have the money? Is there enough resources in that area? And more importantly, does the broad citizenry buy in? In America, to be candid, I think we constantly struggle in this country more than people might think about investing in science. We just had a congressman in and saying that we're lagging in some ways behind other countries on the kinds of investments in science that we should be making, that a lot of people don't see those returns. What's the state of play inside the UAE? Is the entire country bought in, or do you still have to bring people over so that they understand the benefits of this kind of development and investment?
I think you always get the question of why is science important, especially if it's exploratory, especially if you don't see the direct link. And this is something that myself and my colleagues around the world who are working on the same areas of science and technology policymaking face on a daily basis. And it's something that's natural because inevitably you are focused on what is beneficial for every sector today and what is beneficial for the growth of every sector today. And what this mission has brought to the table in terms of discussion for the Emirates is an understanding that exploration is not only about development and finding results to our problems today and finding solutions to our problems today, but rather a lot of science and a lot of scientific development we're benefiting from today, or technologies we're benefiting from today, was due to investments that happened in various sectors 10, 15, 20, 30, or even 40 years ago. And it's this continuity and understanding and continuously engaging with the public to better understand what impact science outcomes have on our daily lives and how does it push forward. Space missions, just from the intriguing aspect of it, does provide that general understanding on the importance of science and in the scientific endeavor. But it's a continuous engagement with the public on the importance of science and the importance of technological advancement and how it fits in. And we need to have a great balance between immediate returns on investments per se and a more indirect returns that impacts various sectors.
Mr. Amiri, let me, some years ago, I think around the time that NYU Abu Dhabi opened up onto its big campus, I visited, and they were having a kind of hackathon of a lot of young students, and they attracted students from other Emirate universities, but they also had at NYU Abu Dhabi a lot of students from around the world, frankly, in the region. And it just raises this interesting question, with the Abraham Accords and normalization with Israel, looking at youth in Israel, youth in the United States, youth elsewhere in the region. Do you think you are going to see as one of the aspirations in your portfolio trying to get young people, not only from the UAE, but from this cross region, to begin mixing and understanding that these achievements in space might be something to help open up new relations, strengthen new relations with Israel, other countries in the region, et cetera?
Absolutely. I think we're at an advantage in the Emirates, being a nation where 200 nationalities coexist. And I myself have benefited through both my education process and working with people from such a diverse background, coexisting in the same place, be it at school or be it at university. And that has benefited myself personally in terms of the growth process, but it has provided an interesting perspective that's very important to science. Diversity in science is very important because you cannot explore with all thinking the same way, with all of us having been exposed to the same way of approaching a problem. It's the differences that make science happen, and it's the celebration of the differences that makes that progresses scientific endeavors forward. And this continues on with the Emirates, both with the announcement of the Citizenship for Talent, with the long-term residency program that's also focused at scientists, researchers, and talented students, and also ensuring that our programs are inclusive not only for Emiratis, but inclusive for everyone that lives within the Emirates. It is through that we'll be able to capitalize further development, not only in the space sector, but also in other sectors for both science and technology.
Minister, just finally, I'm trying to make this cool. What's the next big UAE space mission that you haven't told anybody about yet that you can share with us?
So for me, the next big bet when it comes to the space sector within the Emirates is transferring a lot of the experiences that we've gained over the course of the last 15 years and transferring that onto the private sector. Having a vibrant space industry within the course of the next 5 years with companies that are able to export space, not only space systems, but also space products and services, to me personally and to us at the Space Agency, is our next big bet. I know it's not as exciting as heading to our next destination or announcement of a next major mission. But this is fundamental to enabling the new space economy that other countries are also capitalizing on.
I'm really happy you shared that, because I think talking about how these partnerships are going to work is probably the only way to make them real in the future. And so that's a great answer. So thank you, Minister Sarah Amiri, UAE Minister for State for Advanced Technology and the Chairwoman of the UAE Space Agency. It's a real pleasure to talk to you today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.